Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
This situation is getting very crazy as multiple new reports have dropped surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays and yet another free agent. But this time, folks, they are positioned to rob the New York Yankees following this new report. We're going to break down exactly who this player is and discuss what it means going forward. But not only that, a ton of other updates you're going to want to stay tuned for following the Jays missing out on both Kyle Tucker and bringing Bo Bichette back for a reunion. But before we get into it all, you guys have been absolute beast of support, and it truly means the world to me all offseason long. Obviously, the Jays have struck out a little bit on some free agents. They've also signed a ton of good free agents as well. But let's not forget, the offseason isn't over, and I'm obviously still going to make videos every day, but multiple new reports have dropped. And folks, I want to dive right into it. Now, this is a report from John Heyman that is very interesting. It came out late last night. You can see this here. So the Yankees competition for Bellinger, and this is the player we're discussing today, despite some fans' reservations about him. We'll kind of dive into it all, but it figures to me to be the Mets, the Blue Jays, and the Giants. So this is now, and I'll dive into a ton of reports here. The Jays are involved in a lot of reports surrounding Cody Bellinger. Now, I'll break down whether I think it's a good idea and things like that, but the Jays offered, and it's been confirmed as of yesterday, they offered Tucker a 10-year, $350 million deal, but he basically goes on to say, but might they be willing to offer some of that money that they offered for Tucker for Bellinger? And this is the key part. Besides, it would be 2 for the price of 1 by keeping him away from their AL East rivals, who have said all along how much they want to bring him back. And this is where the situation gets interesting. They are positioned to not only rob the Yankees of Cody Bellinger, turning their offseason completely upside down into a pretty rough offseason in general, but they can also get a very solid player. Now, is he worth the money he's going to get? Probably not, but when you factor in the fact that they could still use a left fielder, they love defense, and you're taking him away from your rival New York Yankees, who can be a very good team, especially next year with, obviously have Aaron Judge, but, Garrett Cole, all these different guys. This makes more sense now to me than it did, previously, just because of the fact that the Yankees, according to multiple reports, are standing firm on Cody Bellinger. You can see this here. This was a report that dropped yesterday. The Yankees are, quote, prepared to move on from Cody Bellinger per B. Madden 1954, if, of course, and he's a Yankees reporter and insider, if he doesn't want to take their offer. And their offer somewhere around, and we'll dive into it, 5 years. Cody Bellinger wants 6 or 7 years. So it is going to be a pretty interesting battle. Now, at the same time, this was from Keegan Matheson's recent article. Shout out to this. You can kind of see it highlighted here. And this is from a tweet highlighting how basically the person who tweeted this said, Keegan's right on the money. The Blue Jays are competing for a World Series right here, right now, and while they've had an excellent offseason, another bat is still needed. And of course, Bichette's bat has been replaced by Okamoto, and you can, hopefully, it's easy to, I don't know about easy, but he says it's easy to bet on a bounce back from Santander. It's probably going to happen, but we'll see what it is. To raise the lineup ceiling and cover themselves, the Blue Jays need to keep pushing in, and that's what Cody Bellinger would provide. I know he's not the most loved player in the world. Now, this is a report from Mark Feinsand before, of course, Bichette was signed, but ultimately it kind of remains the same here. He goes on to say that the Jays would like to add an outfielder still, hence their heavy interest in Kyle Tucker before they signed. And they have obviously Joey Loperfido, Nathan Lucas, David Schneider, Miles Straw, but they are in the running, and they're a potential candidate to enter the Cody Bellinger sweepstakes. Now, we know Ben Nicholson-Smith recently reported they could go the opposite way and go all in for a starting pitcher, which I still think is fairly possible, especially because there's been a lot of tidbits on that. But folks, it is very notable now. You look at the way that this team kind of shapes out, and yes, you could see their starting left fielders projected to be, and it's interesting now, according to Fangraphs, so Santander in left, Varsho in center, Berger in right to start opening day with Okamoto at third and Clement at second. I think this is very likely their opening day lineup. Now, they could factor in Nathan Lucas in there, depending on how things work. Maybe you have a world where your DH is, of course, Anthony Santander, but then that means you have to get George Springer involved. I think this is probably what it's going to look like come opening day, depending on if you move, of course, Berger to third sometimes. Okamoto's earned the third base spot on opening day. And by earned, I mean he hasn't played a game in the MLB, but based on his track record overseas and, of course, in Japan, you look at how this looks. You could easily fit in a spot for Cody Bellinger, then you trade Nathan Lucas for a bullpen arm because they still need a bullpen piece, right? And you look at Bellinger's stats, it could be concerning. Since 2021, he has a 105 WRC+, and last year he was a bit of a Yankee Stadium merchant with that short porch in right field, which favors left-handed hitters, which Bellinger is. He had a 909 OPS with a 152 WRC+. away from Yankee Stadium, he was a below league average hitter. I get his defense is good, but this is not worth $30+ million a year. And this is where things get intriguing because you're right. On the surface, he isn't worth $30 million a year. He was, basically worse than Nathan Lucas last year with slightly better defense. But at the same time, Bellinger had an MVP season, right? An MVP caliber season at least. And you look at what he can do, I would love it. I really would. Not necessarily. Let me be very, very clear. When I say I would love Bellinger to the Jays, I don't think I would pay him $30 million necessarily. But if you have a chance to take, I wouldn't hate it. I'm kind of indifferent because you're stealing him from the Yankees. You can see here, fans starting to feel this way too. All right, I've talked myself into it. The Jays should poach Bellinger from the Yankees. Bellinger is a good hitter. Now, is he going to be better at Yankee Stadium? Always. Guess what? The Jays play the AL East a ton. Obviously, since the schedule changed a couple of years ago, it's not as much as it used to be, but they're going to be playing the Yankees a bunch and probably in the playoffs again if things go well, taking him away from the Yankees while simultaneously getting undeniably a fantastic, fantastic baseball player is something the Jays should do with their money. We're seeing teams overpay for Bo Bichette in the Mets case, overpaying for Kyle Tucker, if you want to say that, in the Dodgers case. It doesn't really matter. A CBA is going to have, obviously, a lockout's probably going to happen due to the CBA agreement. Go out and get the guy, right? You offer Kyle Tucker $350 over 10. That money is not directly available for Cody Bellinger. Money like this, we've heard from Shada Viti and Ben Nicholson-Smith a million times. That is a special allocation for superstars. Bellinger is not a superstar. However, if the Yankees offers 5 years, $155 million, and Tucker wants Bellinger wants 6 or 7 years, $200 million, maybe, just maybe, you go ahead and do it. Now, if you don't, your lineup's looking something like this. Like I just mentioned, Springer leading off with Berger, Guerrero, Santander as your cleanup guy, with Alejandro Kirk, Varsho, Okamoto, Ernie, and Andres. And a fantastic lineup, right? Like a B lineup overall. And their defense is still one of the best in baseball.
This situation is getting genuinely wild. And the longer this offseason drags on, the more it feels like the Toronto Blue Jays are quietly setting traps rather than chasing headlines. Just when it seemed as though the dust had settled after missing out on Kyle Tucker and shutting the door on a reunion with Bo Bichette, another report dropped late in the night and completely flipped the narrative on its head. Suddenly, the Blue Jays aren't just reacting anymore. They're positioned to do something far more dangerous, something far more satisfying. They are in a position to steal directly from the New York Yankees, and the name at the center of this brewing storm is Cody Bellinger. Before we dive into exactly how serious this is and what it could mean for the rest of the offseason, take a second to like, share, and subscribe to the Blue Jays Report, because this story is evolving fast and you don't want to miss what comes next. Your support throughout this offseason has been incredible, and with the way things are heating up, there's no better time to stay locked in. Now let's be clear about one thing straight away. Yes, the Blue Jays have missed on a few marquee names. That much is undeniable. But they've also quietly had a very strong off-season, adding depth, improving balance, and keeping their competitive window wide open. Most importantly, the off-season is not over, not even close. Front offices don't sleep in January, and neither do rumors. Multiple new reports dropped almost simultaneously, and one in particular, from John Heyman, raised more than a few eyebrows across the league. According to Heyman, the Yankees' competition for Cody Bellinger currently includes the Mets, the Giants, and crucially, the Toronto Blue Jays. On the surface, that might not sound shocking, but when you read between the lines, it becomes far more intriguing. The Yankees want Bellinger badly. They've made that clear all along. And yet, the Blue Jays are now lurking in the same market, armed with money they were fully prepared to spend on Kyle Tucker. That 10-year, $350 million offer wasn't theoretical. It was real. The question now being whispered around front offices is simple. If the Jays were willing to go that far for Tucker, would they be willing to redirect a portion of that money toward Bellinger? This is where the story takes a sharp turn. Because this wouldn't just be about adding a player. This would be about denying the Yankees a player they want, potentially turning their entire off-season upside down in one decisive move. It would be 2 wins for the price of 1. Strengthen your own roster, and weaken a direct division rival at the same time. That kind of move doesn't just show ambition. It sends a message. What makes this even more fascinating is the growing belief that the Yankees are standing firm on their offer. According to multiple reports, including one from a respected Yankees insider, the Yankees are prepared to move on from Cody Bellinger if he doesn't accept their current terms. That offer is believed to be in the region of 5 years and around $155 million. Bellinger, on the other hand, is reportedly seeking 6 or even 7 years, pushing the total value closer to $200 million. And that gap is where the Blue Jays may see opportunity. Another piece of the puzzle came from Keegan Matheson, whose recent analysis painted a very clear picture of where the Blue Jays stand. This is a team that believes it can compete for a World Series right now. They've already had an excellent off-season by most objective measures, but there is still one missing ingredient. Another bat. The addition of Okamoto helps, and there is optimism around a bounce-back season from Santander. But if the goal is to raise the ceiling of this lineup and protect against volatility, then pushing further makes sense. Cody Bellinger represents that push. Not everyone loves the idea, and that's completely understandable. Bellinger is a polarizing player. His numbers since 2021 are not particularly flattering at first glance. A 105 weighted runs created plus over that span is fine, not elite. Last season, his splits raised concerns. He was significantly better at Yankee Stadium, benefiting from the short porch in right field. Away from that environment, he was a below-league average hitter. On paper, that doesn't scream $30 million a year player. But baseball decisions are rarely made on paper alone. Defense matters. Versatility matters. And context matters. Bellinger remains one of the best defensive outfielders in the game, with the ability to play center field at a high level and slide into a corner spot seamlessly. He brings left-handed balance to a lineup that can occasionally lean too heavily in one direction. And yes, he has an MVP caliber season on his resume, which reminds teams that the ceiling, while distant, is still there. When you look at how this roster could shape up on opening day, the fit becomes clearer. Fangraphs projections suggest a starting outfield of Santander in left, Varsho in center, and Springer in right, with Okamoto at third base. It's a strong group, but it's not without questions. Springer is aging. Varsho may not be here long-term. Several outfield contracts expire in the near future. Adding Bellinger wouldn't just be about 2025. It would be about stabilizing the outfield for the next few seasons. There's also the flexibility it creates. Bringing in Bellinger could allow the Blue Jays to move a player like Nathan Lukes in a trade for bullpen help, an area that still needs attention. It's roster chess, not checkers. Every move opens up another option. The advanced analytics on Bellinger are mixed, but they don't tell the whole story. He remains an elite defender. His athleticism hasn't disappeared. And while his floor is lower than you'd like for a long contract, his presence changes how opponents pitch and defend. Sometimes value isn't just about WAR or OPS. Sometimes it's about what a player forces the other team to think about. What's particularly interesting is how the fan sentiment has begun to shift. More and more people are reluctantly talking themselves into the idea. Not because Bellinger is perfect, but because the context makes sense. Stealing him from the Yankees matters. The AL East battles matter. Playoff matchups matter. And if Bellinger performs even slightly above expectations in Toronto, the narrative flips quickly. This is also a moment in baseball history where contracts are being handed out aggressively. Teams are overpaying. The Mets did it. The Dodgers did it. With a potential CBA shakeup looming in the future, the logic is simple. If you're going to spend, spend now. The money the Blue Jays earmarked for a true superstar like Tucker isn't automatically transferable, but it does signal willingness. And willingness is half the battle in free agency. If the Blue Jays don't make this move, they'll still have a very strong lineup. Springer, Bichette, Guerrero, Santander, Kirk, Okamoto, Biggio, and Clement form a deep, competitive group. The defense remains among the best in baseball. The pitching staff is a genuine strength. This is not a desperate team. But contenders don't stand still. They press advantages when they see them. Cody Bellinger would not be a perfect signing. He would be a calculated one. A move that balances risk with upside, and rivalry with roster construction. He wouldn't be a savior. He'd be a statement. And that, more than anything, is why this situation feels so compelling. Because the Blue Jays aren't chasing headlines anymore. They are shaping the chessboard. Whether they pull the trigger or not, The fact that they're even in this conversation tells you exactly where their mindset is. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you make this move? Would you pay the price to keep Bellinger away from the Yankees? Or would you rather the Blue Jays push their chips elsewhere? Keep it locked to the Blue Jays report, because there are still moves to be made, and we'll be here every step of the way.